I walked in on my wife and my best friend. Her words? "My cuckold's asleep. You deserve a reward." I wasn't asleep. I was standing behind the cabinet, recording everything. What came next wasn't rage. It was precision. And by the time I was done, they lost everything while I walked away clean. You never forget the sound of betrayal, not when it's coming from the woman you married and the man you called your brother. For me, it started with a single sentence I was never supposed to hear. "My cuckold is asleep. You deserve a reward tonight." That was Melissa, my wife, whispering those words to Jim, my best friend since high school. I was very much awake, standing in the dark behind a cabinet in my own living room, heart beating like a war drum, every part of me screaming to rush in and rip everything apart. But I didn't. Not yet. Let me rewind, because I want you to understand how a life unravels. Not with explosions, but with whispers. My name's Alex. I'm 38. I've been married to Melissa for 9 years. We met in college. She was the one who lit up rooms, drew people in like gravity. I was the quiet type, steady, reliable. I paid the bills, fixed the leaky sink, showed up on time to family dinners. Nothing flashy, just dependable. Melissa used to say she loved that about me, that I was her calm, her safe place, and I believed her. Jim and I had history. We survived bad breakups, funerals, layoffs, real friendship forged in fire. He was my best man, a guy I trusted with everything. So when I got home early that night, unexpectedly, it didn't feel like a scene from a movie. Felt wrong. Jim's car was tucked half hidden between hedges across the street, like he thought I wouldn't notice. Melissa never mentioned he was coming by. Still, I told myself it was innocent. Maybe he dropped something off. Maybe they were planning a surprise for my birthday. I wanted to believe that so badly. It made me sick. But instinct said otherwise. I slipped in through the side door. The house was dim, silent except for soft laughter coming from the living room. That's when I heard it. Melissa's voice, low and breathy. "Let's move to the couch. I'll show you how much I appreciate all the attention you gave me today." A pause. "My cuckold's asleep upstairs. He hasn't touched me in months." Then Jim laughed. I stood frozen behind the cabinet, trying not to breathe too loud. Her next words carved themselves into my brain. "Tonight, you're going to become my best friend, Jim." I stepped into the living room. Melissa was kneeling in front of him. Her mouth opened in horror. Jim's eyes bulged like he'd seen a ghost. Pants halfway down, tangled in a mess of blankets and guilt. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything. I just tilted my head and said, "Yes, Jim. Why don't you stick around and finish what you started with my 304 wife?" Melissa looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Jim, in full panic, tripped over the coffee table, smashing his face and bleeding everywhere as he scrambled like a rat. I didn't help. I didn't flinch. I watched, because the man they thought was asleep, he was wide awake, and he wasn't the same man anymore. Melissa had always claimed she married me because I was safe, solid, reliable. What she forgot is that solid men don't break easily. But when we do, we don't shatter, we explode. And that night, I didn't need to shout. I just needed to let silence do the talking. Because silence is the sound before the avalanche. And mine was just beginning. I didn't punch him. I didn't scream at her. I didn't destroy anything in that room. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I was already thinking 10 steps ahead. Jim sat on the floor holding his bloody nose, his pants still halfway on, breathing like a man who just realized his life was over. Melissa knelt beside him, frozen in place, like she didn't know whether to cover herself or apologize. Neither would have mattered. She looked up at me and whispered, "You weren't supposed to be home." Like that somehow made it better. Like if I hadn't walked in, it wouldn't count. I stared at her, eyes dead calm. And yet, here I am. Jim tried to get up and leave, stumbling like a wounded animal. I stopped him with a flat, quiet voice. "No, you stay. You're going to hear this too." They froze. "Melissa," I said, "you once told me you married me because I was solid, because I made you feel safe. You forgot something. When solid men break, they don't crumble. They detonate. Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say another word. That night, I didn't sleep in a hotel or on a buddy's couch. I went to a storage unit I hadn't opened in 5 years. It held everything from my life before Melissa. Old hard drives, backup laptops, a safe with documents, and a notebook. That notebook was where I used to keep names and favors. Some legal, some flexible. I flipped to a fresh page. Revenge rules. No violence. No yelling. Let the truth do the damage. I wasn't going to get even. I was going to get clear. The next morning, I visited a lawyer Melissa didn't know about. I handed over a file I'd built in one-night screen captures from the cloud backup I'd set up months ago. I suspected something. Her late nights. The shift in her tone. The perfume that wasn't mine. The footage didn't show anything graphic. Just enough. Her voice. Her hands. The betrayal. The lawyer flipped through the evidence. Halfway through, he looked up and said, "You'll get the house, the car, and, if you want, half of his too." But that wasn't enough. I didn't want Melissa to lose things. I wanted her to lose the version of herself she sold to everyone. The kind, radiant wife. The social butterfly. The woman people respected. So I waited. I didn't respond to her 22 missed calls. I ignored Jim's pathetic "bro, I'm sorry" voicemail. They weren't sorry. They were scared. Good. On Friday morning, 3 days later, I sent a quick confirmation email to an event planner. Melissa's birthday party was still on for Saturday. She had no idea that I'd taken over the whole event. Brunch for 40 people. A string quartet. Her favorite cake. Our mutual friends. Most of them adored her or thought they did. Some of them admired me. So I made just one change. The slideshow. Every year, Melissa loved putting together a highlight reel. Trips. Moments. Laughs. This time I created my own. Same music. Same transitions. But different footage. It started soft. Our wedding. A vacation. The baby shower. Then came the switch. A still frame from our home camera. Jim on the couch. Melissa kneeling beside him. Her voice playing loud and clear. "He's asleep. Don't worry. He hasn't touched me in months." Then a text exchange. "Ethan's so boring. Let's screw in our bed again. I wish I'd married you instead." Final slide. "Happy birthday, Melissa. Hope you enjoy the memories." I wasn't there to see it unfold. I didn't need to be. By noon, my phone exploded. Texts. Missed calls. DMs. "Bro, you didn't." She ran out crying. Jim's wife was at the party. Apparently Trisha, Jim's wife, had no idea. Until that moment. She slapped him in front of everyone. Dumped a mimosa on Melissa's head. Took the car and drove off. Guests walked out. The video played on loop. Every screen. Every speaker. Melissa tried to stop it, but it was too late. You can't pause the truth. That night, she called 6 more times. I let everyone go to voicemail. The next morning, I posted a single message to my feed. Some people celebrate birthdays. Others celebrate exposure. Either way, the truth always shows up to the party. I never said her name. I didn't need to. Everyone already knew. The morning after the party, my house was quiet, but my phone wasn't. Messages kept pouring in. Some were from friends. Some from people I hadn't spoken to in years. "Is this real? Tell me you planned that." That was the coldest, cleanest takedown I've ever seen. Melissa didn't text again until noon. This time it wasn't rage. It wasn't tears. It was confusion, panic, and desperation all crammed into a wall of text. Paragraphs long. She wanted to talk. Wanted to explain. She said it wasn't what it looked like. That it was just a weak moment. Then, in the same breath, she tried to blame me. "You made me feel invisible," she wrote. "I just needed to feel wanted. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't respond. I didn't need to." Her words weren't an apology. They were a defense, thin, cracked, and too late. By Sunday, the calls stopped. Not because she gave up, but because she realized the next phase wasn't mine to control. It was hers. Jim had gone silent too, but I'd heard rumors. Trisha kicked him out the morning after the party. She'd packed his things into trash bags and left them on the porch. His car was gone by sunrise. Word was he'd checked into a cheap motel an hour out of town. Someone said he looked like he hadn't slept. Good. I didn't want vengeance. I wanted the truth to land right where it belonged, in the laps of the people who made those choices. Monday came. I met with my lawyer again. She asked if I wanted to file for divorce immediately. I didn't hesitate. We'd already gathered enough evidence. Texts, emails, video, audio. The surveillance system had logged dates, times, and footage with audio backups. Even if she tried to say she'd been manipulated or coerced, there it all was clear as day. I want a clean break, I told my lawyer. But I want it to leave a mark. She smiled. Then we'll do it quietly, but thoroughly. The papers were prepped within days. All assets were frozen under my name. The car Melissa drove, technically mine. The joint accounts, blocked and reassigned. Access revoked. Credit cards canceled. I left one message for Melissa. Check your email. Everything you need is there. No emotion, just facts. She responded 3 hours later with a line that told me everything I needed to know. So you're just walking away? Yes, exactly that. She didn't understand that the calmest men become the most dangerous when you mistake silence for weakness. The day the papers were served, she showed up at my office. No appointment, no warning, just walked in like she still had the right. The receptionist tried to stop her, but I waved it off. I met her in the lobby, neutral ground. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Can we talk? She asked. I didn't move. You have 5 minutes. She fumbled through words. Apologies that weren't real, explanations that didn't matter. I made a mistake. You made a decision, I said. There's a difference. She said she was willing to go to therapy, that we could rebuild. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so disconnected from reality. As if a lie that deep could be patched with a few counseling sessions and promises. You wanted excitement, I told her. You got it. Now live with it. Then I turned and walked back inside. She stayed frozen in place. When I glanced back once through the glass, she was still standing there, her expression hollow. Later that week, the social backlash began. Our circle had shrunk. Half the people she used to call friends stopped returning her messages. The other half pretended they hadn't seen the video. But I knew they had. Jim? He vanished. Word was he left town. Deleted his socials. His job let him go after someone anonymously sent the footage to HR. I didn't do it, but I wasn't surprised it happened. People talk. People forward things. Karma doesn't wait for your permission. As for me, I didn't gloat. I didn't post a follow-up or drop more footage. The damage was done. And it wasn't just to reputations. It was to illusions. They thought they were in control. They thought I wouldn't find out. They thought I'd break. They were wrong on all three. The man they left behind, the man they thought was weak, was the one who ended up with everything they lost. And I wasn't done yet. The morning after the papers were served, Melissa went quiet. Not calm quiet. That specific kind of silence where you can almost hear someone trying to rewrite history in their own head. She didn't call for 3 days. Then came the texts. Not rage, not denial, this time it was bargaining. Let's talk. We can fix this. It wasn't real with Jim. It was just loneliness. Then the one that stuck with me. I only did it because you stopped making me feel special. That line ended any trace of pity I had left. I forwarded the message to my lawyer. Infidelity in my state doesn't just stain your reputation. It breaks your leverage. With the evidence I had, the legal system didn't just lean in my favor, it collapsed onto her. My attorney, Sarah, was exactly the kind of woman you want on your side in a situation like this. She didn't waste time with sympathy or theatrics. She reviewed the files, texts, videos, surveillance, and said, "You'll keep the house, the dog, the assets. She'll walk away with legal debt and possibly a restraining order if she keeps messaging you like this." Melissa tried to fight back. She filed a counterclaim, emotional distress. She said the video I played at her birthday was public shaming and weaponized humiliation. Sarah didn't flinch. She's lucky we didn't name her publicly. This wasn't exposure. This was documentation. We went to court. Melissa showed up with a new lawyer. Someone younger, less experienced, maybe cheaper. She wore the same mask she always had. The wronged woman, the misunderstood wife. But this time, no one bought it. The judge reviewed the footage, the messages, the timeline. Melissa's lawyer argued she was emotionally manipulated, that I had staged the whole thing. But the facts were airtight. I didn't push her toward Jim. I didn't plant the texts or fake her voice on the footage. She created the collapse, frame by frame, word by word. The judge asked her one question. Is this you in the footage? She tried to stall, tried to twist her face into confusion. But there it was, clear in color with audio. Her voice. He's asleep. Don't worry. He hasn't touched me in months. The judge didn't need further explanation. By the end of the hearing, the ruling was simple. I kept the house. I kept the dog. Melissa forfeited any claim to spousal support. She paid her own legal fees. And Jim? He didn't show. Not once. Not to support her. Not even to speak on her behalf. He was a ghost, just like his loyalty. Rumor had it his own wife had filed for divorce 2 days after the party. Trisha, unlike Melissa, didn't waste time with denial. She used the footage, the texts, everything. I heard she moved out the same week. Left him the house but drained the account. And just like that, Jim was left with an empty building and no one to clean up his mess. Melissa moved in with her sister for a while. Then back to her mother's house. She changed her number, deleted her socials, tried to erase the digital trail. But it was too late. Our friends knew. Our coworkers knew. People we hadn't seen in years knew. Her name became shorthand for betrayal in certain circles. I never gloated. I never told the full story publicly. I didn't have to. When someone burns down their own life, you don't need to hand them gasoline. Just give them a lighter. 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a card in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was a letter, half apology, half memory lane. She wrote about the early days, how we laughed, how I made her feel safe. Then she wrote, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope one day you'll understand why I did what I did. I didn't finish the letter. I didn't need to. There's no version of betrayal that needs a footnote. She didn't fall into someone else's arms because I was gone. She did it because I was still there, and she didn't think I'd ever leave. She was wrong. I didn't just leave the house. I left the version of me who tolerated being less than he was worth. People ask me if I ever regretted it. The video, the silence, the precision. The answer is simple. No. Because revenge doesn't have to be cruel, it has to be clear. Melissa thought betrayal would break me. She thought she could cheat, lie, and then twist it into a story where I was the distant husband and she was the wounded wife. But she forgot something important. You don't get to rewrite a story when you're the one who set it on fire. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to make threats. I just let her words, her actions, and her choices speak louder than I ever could. The day the divorce was finalized, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel relief either. What I felt was quiet. Not the kind of quiet you get from giving up, but the kind that comes when the noise is finally over. I stopped checking her social media, stopped wondering where she went. I let the dust settle and focused on rebuilding. Not revenge. Not even redemption. Just restoration. I adopted a routine. Long walks with the dog. Calling friends I hadn't spoken to in months. Sleeping without anxiety. Eating without distraction. Laughing without the weight of suspicion pressing on my chest. Some people talk about closure like it's a conversation you have. Some neat bow you tie at the end of a hard chapter. But closure doesn't come from their apology. It comes from your acceptance. And I accepted the truth. Melissa wasn't the person I married. Maybe she never was. Maybe I just wanted to believe she was. The worst part wasn't the cheating. It wasn't even that she chose my best friend. It was the realization that while I was protecting our marriage, she was treating it like a cage she couldn't wait to break out of. That's what stuck with me. But that's also what freed me. Because once I let go of the fantasy, I could finally start building something real, with or without someone else. Jim never reached out again. Not after the party. Not after the divorce. I assume he left the state. Someone mentioned he picked up construction work in a small town 3 states over. No friends. No support system. Just a guy rebuilding from scratch, except this time he's doing it with no one in his corner. Melissa tried to repair her image. She started attending therapy. Posted vague quotes about growth. Tried to rebrand herself as someone learning from her mistakes. But those who knew, they didn't forget. She stopped getting invited to events. Her name disappeared from social circles. Not out of cruelty but consequence. People don't distance themselves because you failed. They distance themselves because you lied about who you were while pretending to be someone better. I didn't have to burn her world down. She did that on her own. All I did was light the truth. And the truth does what it always does, it spreads. So, was it revenge? Some might call it that. I call it accountability. When someone tears down everything you built, you don't owe them a second chance. You owe yourself a clean start. And that's exactly what I took. The house? Mine. The peace? Mine. The future? Mine. She got the suitcase and a name people no longer say with respect. In the end, I didn't destroy anyone. I just stopped protecting the lies. And that, more than any plan, any footage, any courtroom victory, that was the real power. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It isn't public. It's walking away while they're still trying to explain the wreckage they caused. So here's the truth I'll leave you with. You don't need to destroy someone to win. You just need to stop giving them the chance to destroy you.